Happy Friday, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation. My name is Diego Vedrelli. I am joined by Harmon Dial. Harm, I love Fridays so much. I got a Home Depot order ready to go. I'm going to build a planter this weekend. I've been growing strawberries recently. That's something I've started to do. I think I'm going to start growing a bunch of different vegetables, so I'm building a planter this weekend.
We're the same age, but I'm definitely not in this phase of life yet where I'm excited about hitting up Home Depot and building a planter over the weekend. We're born the same year, but I feel like I have some catching up to do in
Dude,
terms of what we find fun.
I've got quite the garden going. I'm not gonna lie, and yeah, like I got my next woodworking project. I'm gonna build myself a raised little planter so those bastard raccoons don't get to my vegetables. I am, and you know what? I was joking about this with one of my friends as well. I'm really in my old, not only old man, but old Italian man. I was walking around in a white tank top with my Adidas slides and socks outside, and I was watering my plants. And I really, in that moment, was like, oh, my nonno used to do this. Like I used to see my nonno do this all the time. And yeah, anyways, I'm excited. I'm excited about Home Depot. And I'll tell you what, there's two phases, right? Because you might think, oh, that's an old man activity. New Lego set dropping on Sunday. The fiance and I are heading to the Lego store bright and early Sunday morning so we can get our hands on that new Lego set. It's going to be up right behind me on the set. It's going to replace the Aston Martin DB5 that I've got up there right now. I'm going to get myself the new set. I'm not going to say what it is, but yeah, new Lego set on Sunday. So that's my weekend. Woodworking and the Lego store.
Lego is a very cool hobby, but I don't have the patience for it, nor do I think I'd be very good at it. So I wasn't good at it as a child. So anytime I end up with free time or basically any hobby I have outside of hanging out with friends and going to the beach is sort of sports or fitness related, whether it's playing a sport, whether it's in the gym, whether it's going for a run. Everything I like to do for fun is active in some way, or a little bit of reading,
Yeah, that's fair. I'm gonna get you a Lego set. It's gonna change your life. Like you're gonna think, oh, I don't really want to do this. Then you're gonna do it, and then you're like, oh, they have other set. Oh, they have this
Please
set.
don't
Oh, cool.
please don't get me addicted.
I
Please
might.
don't. I beg of
I
you. The
might.
last thing I need is another time sink hobby. Plus, for the first one, I would need 3 to 5 business days just to figure it out.
Also, Big Hog Hockey said this as well. How can you not be good at Lego? There's instructions. What do you mean you weren't good at Lego?
I mean,
What was
as
the
a
problem?
kid, maybe I'd be good at it now, but
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say you'd be able to follow the instructions. To put
probably.
together
There are
Lego.
instructions. I didn't know there were instructions.
Yeah. There's like detailed instructions, and they don't just like when you open a box of Lego. If you have like a 5,000 piece set, you don't just open it and dump out endless pieces. Like they're categorized. They're in different bags, right? So you dump out one bag, you do that bag, then you go to number 2, then you go to number 3. It's not very overwhelming. It's really chill. You'll have a good time. We'll see. We'll see.
All right.
All right, Box Van Gogh making a really good point. Don't you get to write that stuff off on your taxes if it appears on camera? If I were self-employed, and trust me, I've looked into this. If I were self-employed, yes, but I can't because I'm an employee. You know what though? We're gonna get Bag Milk on the show on Wednesday, and I'm gonna ask him if I can expense Lego. Actually, I've already made that joke. I sent the Titanic set to him, which is like my dream set. It's like $700, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna put this on my set. I'm gonna expense it. Sound good? And he just laughed. So I don't think I'm gonna get away with that. We got a super chat here, which of course means it's our first donation of the day to the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Duckies. I'm just gonna say Duckies is the name. Hit us up with a $5 super chat, and he said Quads is in his midlife crisis era. I don't know. I'm enjoying having a garden. You've known this for a while though. That's where I belong. Is I don't like elevators. I don't like the apartment life. It wasn't for me. I'm happy. I'm happy where I am. All right. Don't give me that midlife crisis crap. But I will say, Harm, we gotta get you into woodworking. That's something you'll have fun with.
That's something I'd be terrible at too. Hands-on, I've told you this off camera before. Hands-on skills are not a strength of mine.
Dude, me neither though. But you get better at it. Start simple, right? Like my mom called me last week. Literally, this isn't even like I'm not just doing a bit or telling a story. This is what she told me. She goes, hey, I need you to cut me a piece of wood that's 3 inches high. And then like she told me how wide it needed to be. So I just bought that piece of wood and I cut a 3-inch piece of wood. She's like, oh, this is perfect. Thank you. I have no idea what she needs it for. She's like, buy me this piece of wood. She says something about her pans. She needed it for her pans. So start small. We'll get you using the saw. You'll feel great about it. I'm not gonna lie. I am a little daunted by this planter that I'm gonna try to build this weekend. I'll get a picture of it for Monday. But yeah, I'm gonna get you into it too. Lego and woodworking. That's what you're gonna get into with me. It's gonna be fun. All right, let's get on the rails. Our opening segment is brought to you by our friends over at Pacific Toyota. We want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X, an SUV packed with plenty of space. The BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. It's backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota. And if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes, even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get a $5,000 incentive, and now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X LE all-wheel drive from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Okay. Someone in the chat said, is Harm good at anything? And people said, and Box, that was Big Hog Hockey, regulars in the show. And then Box Van Gogh said, Harm is an excellent sports journalist. And Big Hog Hockey said, good point. So you got that going for you, Harm. I wish I could be a good sports journalist.
Nice one.
All right. The Stanley Cup Final, the rematch, is set as the Oilers defeat the Stars 6-3. This one is marred in controversy, right? Because after two goals on 2 shots, I would say 2 shots that he didn't have much chance of stopping. And I think that's an important piece of context when we talk about this. Jake Ottinger gets the pull for the Dallas Stars, but not just he got yanked. Pete DeBoer calls the timeout. You see everybody at the bench. Pete DeBoer's talking to his skaters, obviously giving them a reset. It was a smart move to call a timeout. But then Ottinger's skating back to the net and then gets called back and has to go back to the bench. That's bad communication in my mind. And also, I did not like the decision to pull Jake Ottinger.
It's not what I would have necessarily done. It's not as if after that second goal and that second shot, I was thinking, oh, they got to pull Jake Ottinger, especially because I don't think he's been a problem in the series. Yeah, he hasn't necessarily been stealing them games, but to me, the Oilers were significantly more dangerous offensively through that entire series. And a lot of the goals they were scoring, he didn't have much of a chance on. But I can sort of understand it from the perspective of, with Ottinger in the crease in that situation, down 2-0 early, they haven't had the lead really at all in most of these games.
14 minutes they held the lead in that series.
I think that was simply a spark the team, light a fire into them. We gotta try something different. That to me was a break glass in case of emergency option to get the team going more than it was that Jake Ottinger is the main problem here.
Okay, there's a few things to unpack here. First of all, and I'd love to see numbers on this. Maybe I'll start tracking it. I don't buy that, oh yeah, swap out the goaltender and it gives your team a spark. Especially your star goaltender. Like, they've committed a lot of money to Jake Ottinger. And I think the bigger issue I had, Harm, was that post-game, what Pete DeBoer had to say, and we're going to play it in a second, but I think post-game, I really didn't like his comments. And I guess, yeah, let's just play those comments, Jacob. Let's hear what Pete DeBoer had to say and then react to it, because this is what I really didn't like.
Well, anytime you pull a goalie, there's the reasoning's always to try and spark your group. So that was the number one reason. We had talked endlessly in this series about trying to play with the lead. And obviously we were in a 2-0 hole right away. And you know what, I didn't take that lightly and I didn't blame it all on Jake. But, the reality is if you go back to last year's playoffs, he's lost 6 to 7 games to Edmonton, and we gave up 2 shots on 2 goals in an elimination game. So, it was partly to spark our team and wake them up, and partly, knowing that, status quo had not been working, and that's a pretty big sample size.
To remind everyone, that answer started with, I'm not going to pin it all on Jake. And then he pulls up the record. I'm sorry, but who was the coach for those games? This is a track record that is now following Pete DeBoer of his teams just not being able to score in the conference final, dating back to his days with the Sharks, with the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, what are we talking about here? I did not like that at all. I thought he threw Jake Ottinger under the bus, really for no reason. Like, does Pete DeBoer think he's getting fired? Because this had similar undertones to John Tortorella just coming out in his quarter zip and saying, I don't want to do this job anymore. I don't want to be with this team anymore, like he did it with the Philadelphia Flyers earlier this year. That had the same undertone to me, Harm. I did not like those comments from Pete DeBoer, because how do you face Jake Ottinger heading into next year? Like, they're not going to trade Jake Ottinger. They're not getting rid of Jake Ottinger. And you basically just said, like, I don't pin it all on Jake, but he sucks and I don't trust him.
The decision to pull him was somewhat defensible, even if you don't fully agree with the move there. But the post-game comments were outrageous in my mind. I agree. DeBoer shouldn't have thrown Ottinger under the bus. That team just wasn't prepared to play in that series. Most of their offensive guys outside of Rantanen through these playoffs were wild disappointments, especially 5-on-5. They couldn't create and manufacture anything. Jason Robertson, you could give him some benefit of the doubt just because, all right, he was injured in round 1, coming off injury in round 2, and all right, he at least came through with 4 goals in the last 3 games in that series. But the other guys, Duchesne, Marchment, Johnston, Ben, Dodonov, you continue going down that list, with the exception of Rantanen and maybe Mikael Granlund. Rope hints at times was effective too. But outside of those 3 names I mentioned, most of the forwards, and Sam Steele, if you want to include him as well, but you had probably 8 of your 12 forwards overall underperforming offensively.
Also worth mentioning that Casey DeSmith's last game was April 26th. Over a month since Casey DeSmith saw action, he goes in against the Oilers. And this is the other thing. I'm not here to crap on Casey DeSmith, but the 2 goals Ottinger let in, I don't pin either of those goals on Ottinger. I think there was 1 or 2 on DeSmith last night where you'd say, yeah, you probably want to have that one. And I think that's important context too. I did not like that. I didn't like the decision to pull him. And like you, I did not like the post-game comments after. I wouldn't be surprised if Pete DeBoer is not back in Dallas next year. I don't think he should be, to be honest with you.
Yeah, post-game quote like that, don't think that's going to go over well with, obviously, Ottinger, and what does that mean for DeBoer's future? We'll see. I mean, he obviously did a terrific job to get them to the Western Conference Final. I mean, beating the Colorado Avalanche, considering how stacked they were after improving their supporting cast, with some of the moves where they added Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle, they obviously had fixed their goaltending. Beating that Avalanche team without Miro Heiskanen in round 1, really impressive work. And then taking down the Winnipeg Jets as well, a team that won the President's Trophy, impressive work. But they weren't really in this series against Edmonton at all. And manufacturing 5-on-5 offense was the biggest problem.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Let's talk about the Oilers side of it. They just have their fastball right now. I think this is going to be a really good Stanley Cup Final. It's a rematch for the first time since 08-09 when the Red Wings and the Penguins met in the final. Of course, the Red Wings taking the first one, the Penguins taking the second one. And of course, as we found out last week, you and Jacob both think this is horrible for the sport, that rematches should never happen. Let's let someone else have a turn. You guys were talking like you want to change the rules
not that rematches are ever bad. Not that rematches are ever bad. Just that I don't think a Florida Panthers dynasty is good for the league, which was your take.
It is good for the league, though, and we're not rehashing this debate. We're not rehashing this debate.
Basically, I'm calling it out.
You and Jacob basically said like, "Oh yeah, no, rematches should never happen. No one should ever get to go to the finals 2 years in a row." You guys want like draft lottery rules where it's like you can't win twice. You're not allowed. Give someone else a turn.
All right, buddy. You're going to be the only one outside of the Florida area celebrating a Florida Panthers dynasty if they win back-to-back this year.
I'm picking Edmonton, and we're going to get to our picks.
I was going to say, I'm calling it now. I think this is Edmonton's year.
Yeah, I agree. And that's surprising to me, because what was the conversation about Edmonton during the regular season? It was that, holy smokes, the depth is gone. Vasily Podkolzin spent all season next to Leon Draisaitl. This is the best they can do. Jeff Skinner didn't work out. Victor Arvidsson didn't work out. These moves that they made did not work out. They let go of quality pieces in Dylan Holloway and to a lesser extent Philip Broberg. We thought that Edmonton's depth was going to kill them, and it's been their depth to this point that has just skyrocketed them in the playoffs. I know he had the really impressive goal last night, and obviously they're going to get their points, but has there been a game in this playoff run where like Leon and Connor McDavid just took over the game, where you looked at it and said like, oh, this is them that won them this game? I think it's been a team effort all the way around. And I think ultimately the Oilers are defending way better than we ever have seen them defend before.
Yeah, I would push back slightly though against the idea that, okay, maybe they haven't had to single-handedly put the team on their back, but I mean, McDavid's got 26 points in 16 games. Like they've been important. And McDavid last night was incredible, right? That breakaway goal, especially when the Stars had pulled within one and they're thinking, all right, we have some life here. We're going to push. And then that's just a dagger.
That was crazy.
Absolutely posterizing Casey DeSmith on that one. But you're right. I mean, the depth has crushed my expectations heading into the playoffs. Corey Perry was largely a non-factor during last year's playoffs. He's been incredible, 7 goals in 16 games in this postseason at 40 years old, which if Perry wasn't performing at that level, I think you'd be a lot more worried about Zach Hyman's injury. Now, yep. Hyman's loss is still a significant blow against a really deep star-studded Panthers forward group that also plays that gritty, heavy style, but since Perry can sort of be that net front presence at 5-on-5 on the power play, it helps mitigate the loss a little bit compared to if the Oilers had the version of Corey Perry we saw in last year's playoffs, then they wouldn't have any internal sort of replacement to step up and fill those shoes with Hyman's net front scoring skill set as a complementary guy. So Perry stepping up is huge. Yeah. Evander Kane has exceeded my expectations. Again,
Jeff Skinner scores a goal last night.
And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. How can we forget? What was it? 4 straight multi-point games to open the conference final. He's been incredible. And this is after a regular season where he only had, I want to double check, but his production was down quite a bit. He didn't even hit 50 points this year in 78 games, despite you're playing power play 1 with McDavid, and 5-on-5, about half of his minutes were with Connor as well. So imagine that type of deployment where you're stapled next to McDavid on the man advantage for large chunks of even strength play, and you don't even hit 50 points. Whereas now he's up to 18 points in 16 playoff games. That's a development that I didn't necessarily expect. And so this Oilers team is getting offense up and down the lineup. Most importantly, I think compared to last year, their blue line can move the puck significantly better.
Yes.
The Nurse-CC pair was a major liability. The Canucks nearly single-handedly exploited that. Whereas this Oilers blue line, especially now that Ekholm is back too, like everybody can move the puck. Everybody's mobile. There are no weak links. And that's helped account for the fact that the forward group is a little bit older and isn't as fast as it was last year. So you can't, like before, you used to be able to slow down Edmonton's offense at times because the MO was just forecheck them into hell. Don't allow them to break the puck out cleanly. And that's the games that Vancouver won in that second round series against Edmonton last year. A lot of it was, wow, Vancouver's forecheck is stifling the Oilers on the breakout. And so the Oilers can't even get their rush offensive game going because of that. Whereas now this Oilers blue line, I think, is going to be a lot more prepared to handle the pressure of Florida's forecheck. And I don't think they're going to run into as many hiccups manufacturing rush chances. Not to mention, I think this is a big component that people maybe forget, but last year's Stanley Cup Final, when the Edmonton Oilers lost, Leon Draisaitl was heavily banged up because of that Tyler Myers cross-check. He didn't score a single goal in that 7-game series, only 3 assists. I don't think you're getting that. The Florida Panthers are going to get that version of Leon Draisaitl in the Stanley Cup Final rematch.
Such a good point.
So that to me is a huge game changer. And again, I just think the Oilers have found a fastball since the middle of that King series that is going to be tough for the Panthers to stop.
Yeah, and we also mentioned like McDavid was really banged up. He was like cut in half last year as well. So you have that as well. And I'm sure they're both going through stuff now. Everybody is at this time of year, but you're right. That cross check from Myers was one that I think he needed surgery to repair it after the season. So yeah, that is definitely going to be something to follow. I was looking at the point spread. Honestly, like, they're getting more goals from up and down the lineup, but the point output was actually pretty similar to last year's so far. It's just that they're getting more goals kind of up and down the lineup. Like, Connor Brown's got 5 goals, right? Last year he had 2 through 19 games, and obviously there's still games to go in this playoff run. So they are getting contributions up and down the lineup, and that really has
well, also defensively too, right? It's not just how much you create offensively, but 5-on-5, what's your goal differential look like? And since the start of these playoffs, the Oilers' 5-on-5 goal differential in non-McDavid and non-Draisaitl minutes, I haven't checked the exact numbers after the series, but after 2 rounds, it was surprisingly strong. It was way better than the Dallas Stars, sort of 5-on-5 goal differential in non-Mikko Rantanen minutes. And that was a big reason why I picked the Oilers to win this Western Conference Final, even though on paper you would look at the Dallas Stars and think, oh, they've got elite depth and should have that advantage. Oilers are sort of getting it done because of their depth. And that's not to say I should be careful in saying, even though I'm picking the Oilers to win the cup here, the Panthers are such a wagon, and I expect this to be a really long series, at least 6, if not 7 games. And the way the Panthers just dispatched the Hurricanes that easily in 5 games, not to mention the composure and poise and resilience that they have from all the experience, and this being their 3rd Stanley Cup Final in a row, they're going to be the toughest opponent by far the Oilers have faced in these playoffs.
It's going to be such a good final. We're going to get to our predictions in a second, but let's see what the people say. Let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by our friends over at Greta. By now, you know that Greta's a great spot to watch the big game, but did you know it's an even better spot for your upcoming party or event? If you need a venue for a team building or summer social event, check out Greta. They've got the street food menu, they've got the arcade game, of course, they've got the bar. Ton of options on all 3 of those things. My personal favorite on the arcade, football machine, and the basketball game. Make Greta your spot for your next event. For more info and to book your event, go to gretabar.com. Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right, poll question. We were asking, who are you rooting for? Not who do you think is going to win. Who are you rooting for in the Stanley Cup Final? Right now, 64.1% of voters say Florida. 35.9% say Edmonton. Canucks fans, I get it. I do. I don't know. I think we're going to see more Edmonton support for 2 reasons. Obviously, you know, the same reason that everybody was so excited about Canada winning 4 nations. And of course, the fact that Florida already won. Florida won last year. Luongo got his cup. Canucks fans are happy about that. I think we're going to see some more support for Edmonton this year, but we'll see. Yeah, I think in the chat we see people saying Oilers. People are saying Canada. You're rooting for Canada here. I get it.
I think if you polled hockey fans just on the street in person, the results would be flipped. I would expect it to be 65-ish%, like 2/3 rooting for Edmonton and maybe only 1/3 rooting for the Panthers. I think this is a very hockey Twitter, Canucks Twitter thing where more fans want to see the Panthers win compared to the Oilers. Not saying one is right and one is wrong, but I think if you just spoke to casual hockey fans in and around the city, a lot of them are on the Oilers bandwagon.
Dude, even last year, and I'll say this, I think I said this last year as well, but even last year when the Oilers were the ones that eliminated the Canucks, there was watch parties. We had watch parties in my old apartment building. There was watch parties for the Canucks, and then they switched to Oilers watch parties the minute the Canucks were eliminated. And like, people were wearing Oilers gear. Like, people were ready to go supporting the Oilers in the Cup Final last year. So I think that's only going to increase last year. And I think you're right if you go to the street. But we're not on the street here. We're in our chat. Mike in the Valley says, Canada only comes into play in international competitions. Karn said, I'd rather cheer for Boston than the Oilers, TBH. I'm going to be honest. I'm tired of this Canada drought. I'm really tired of it. If it's the only team that I'd say, okay, I don't really want to see it, is probably the Leafs, because like I said, Parade in 30 would be all over Sportsnet for the next 8 months.
Parade in 60, actually.
Parade in 60. Thank you, Harm. Excuse me. My bad. Yeah, I would say the Leafs are probably the only team that I really wouldn't want to see it. That would make me have serious pause of if they should get it done. I think it's good. I don't know, man. I don't want to hear Pat McAfee talk about how the cup never comes to Canada anymore. I don't want to hear that anymore. I want it to end. And you know what? I don't know. I'm okay with the Oilers. I'm okay with the Oilers. And I do think they're going to win. I do think they're going to win it at the end of the day. Putting on my hockey analyst cup, I think they're going to win it.
Is it just me, or has McDavid become a little bit more likable over the last 12 months?
Absolutely.
I don't know what it is.
Said it. Yeah.
It might be the combination of the Amazon doc and just seeing the raw emotion out of him instead of just being a robot all the time. But also, I feel like in press settings too, he's a little more interesting and will drop jokes. And for example, he opened one of his press conferences lately, or scrums, I should say, with about, I guess we can play defense, taking shots at media people and fans who are saying the Oilers can't defend. Even just, I don't know, on Instagram, seeing his ice bath, hopping into it, and just like seeing the human element of like, ooh, he hates doing this. He feels more human rather than robot. And then obviously Four Nations scores the clinching goal. I think 12 months ago, it was easier to hate on him and actively root against him than it is now. I'm not saying McDavid's at the point where he's likable, because he's never going to be Sidney Crosby from that perspective, where people outside of Pittsburgh, like Canadians, just love Sid, and I don't think McDavid's going to get to that level. But it's a lot easier to, I don't want to say cheer for him, but not want him to fail, if that makes sense.
Okay, everybody come clean right now. We all cheered for him. What was it, 4 months ago at the Four Nations when he ended that gold medal game, when he ends the final against the US? We were all cheering for Connor McDavid. I mean, we were all yelling at him too, because he was abysmal in that game up to that point. But yeah, everybody just go ahead and come clean. You all cheered for Connor McDavid. You all did. You know it too. And you're about to do it again when the Olympics roll around next year. So I think it's a combination of all of those things.
I might also be biased because one of my best friends is the biggest McDavid and Oilers hater I have perhaps ever met. And so I just have so much fun trolling him. Because for example, heading into the conference final, he was convinced that Dallas was gonna dust them. And so just like, I just text him every time the Oilers, I love trolling him. I like making fun of him. So I think part of it too is because one of my best friends is such a McDavid hater, and I like trolling my best friend, that I think that's part of it too. I'm probably a little bit biased and not jumping on the hating the Oilers and McDavid bandwagon. But I think universally too, again, if you ask most hockey fans just on the street, especially the ones that aren't sort of on Canucks Twitter and that invested, I think most of them want to see McDavid get a cup.
All right. We need to get Lachlan Irvin. He does those man on the street interviews. We're going to get him to just walk up to people on the street and ask who they're rooting for in the cup final. We're going to do this. Jacob, book Lachlan.
He works for us. We don't have to book him. You just tell him what to do. You're his boss.
Okay. Yeah, KJ with this one. I like this one. This is a good comment. He said, Four Nations wins, Stanley Cup back in Canada, Olympic gold medal next year. Let's go. I'm sorry, if all of those things happen and you're sitting there saying, oh, no, not me. Nope, not me. I'm rooting for my Canucks and my Canucks only, baby. I'm sorry. I disagree. Elston Gunn with a hot take said McDavid retires cupless. Book it. Wow. All right. Let's get to our third round picks. But before we do that, I want to tell everybody about the Vancouver Whitecaps. Okay. The Vancouver Whitecaps are headed to Mexico and will play in the 2025 CONCACAF Champions Cup Final on Sunday, June 1st. That's this Sunday against Cruz Azul. This is the first time in club history Whitecaps FC has reached the final and just the third time a Canadian team has ever reached the final. Make sure you're tuning in. Make sure you're supporting the boys in blue. All right. We have an ad as well from the Whitecaps.
Welcome to Vancouver and to BC Place, the home of Jesper Sorensen's Vancouver Whitecaps FC.
Brian White leaps up,
All right. Let's get to our Cali Canuck Quads being the youngest 25-year-old boss now. I'm going to be honest. I have one of those. I didn't get it for myself, but I have the world's best boss mug that Michael Scott has in the office. It's my favorite mug. And I've, not to brag, but I've technically been the boss of Canucks Army since I was like 20. Obviously now Nation Network. That was when I was 23, 22. How old was 22? I think I was 22 when I got my editor-in-chief job. But anyways, let's move on. Third round picks. Did we all get them right? Jacob, we were talking about the show. You picked Carolina?
I picked Carolina. I was buying into something I shouldn't have been, and I
don't think it was a horrible pick at the time. Florida was a wagon, but also like let's not forget that Carolina took care of Washington and made it look easy, right? So I don't know.
And that's what I was banking on. I was banking on Carolina getting the good goaltending and winning that way, and it just didn't happen.
It's okay. So was that the only incorrect pick?
Yeah. Everything else was right. We all picked the Oilers, and then you guys both picked the Florida Panthers.
Did we all say Oilers in 7?
I think I said Oilers no, I definitely said 7. Yeah, I think we all picked them in 7. We all gave the Stars a chance, and yeah, that didn't happen.
Okay, Cup final predictions, fellas. Let's go. I'll start it off. Okay, I'm obviously taking the Oilers. I am taking Oilers in 6.
I'll take them in 7. I could see it finishing in 6, but I want to give the Panthers their respect. So sure. Oilers in 7.
Jacob?
I'm with you, Quads. I think they'll do it in 6. They're not going to fall down 3-0 in this series. I think they're going to end up winning. They have home ice, if I'm not mistaken, right? They start at home. Yeah. Yes, so I think they're going to take both those games at home, and then they'll clean it up in 6. Do you want to do Conn Smythe predictions as well here?
Stu Skinner.
The second year in a row.
What do we get on Bet365?
Oh, no.
If we pick Troy Stetcher.
Save it for the end of the show, but not Troy Stetcher. I mean, look, if the Oilers win, they're just... It's just going to be McDavid.
It's going to be close.
McDavid.
Yeah, there's not really much to debate on that one.
Yeah. Are we all taking, other than me, are we all taking Connor McDavid? Well, Draisaitl's plus 800. That's decent value. Stuart Skinner is plus 3,300.
And you got to write in a special request for Troy Stetcher. I'm sure.
Book Mr. Bet365 himself so that we can talk to him about this. Okay, so we're all picking McDavid, Conn Smythe?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, all of us picking the Oilers. Wow. Bag Milk joins the show on Wednesday as we preview this series a little more closely. Also, here's the other part that we should all be thrilled about. This is starting earlier than it was originally going to. There's going to be some runway in between the end of the Cup final and the draft. Don't give me this Cup final ends 2 days later. It's the draft. That should never even be an option, but of course it was potentially going to be an outcome. Thankfully, it's not. The Cup final, the last day for the Cup final is what, the 20th now? That would give us like a week before the draft.
I haven't seen the exact schedule yet, but that sounds about
20th.
Right.
20th would be Game 7, Friday, June 20th, and then the draft is until the 28th.
I like that.
Yeah, or maybe it's the 26th, whatever it is. Yeah, I'm very excited that this is earlier. It's you know what? Here's the other thing. People don't want to hear this. It's good from a content perspective. It is good for all of us when we're making content about hockey. Like, spread it out more. And I know we've had this debate before. Not even debate. You're totally with me on this. We've had this conversation before that it's just so weird that they insist on putting this, like, why is the draft right there? Why is free agency right there? Like, come on. And the fact that, I don't know, man, the fact that the cup final can end as late as it did last year and then just have that quick turnaround, I hate that. I don't think it's good for the league. I really don't. Anyways, okay. Are we good to go for Abbotsford? You guys want to talk about the Abbotsford Canucks? All right. Abbotsford takes game 1. Man, bad news continues for the Stars organization as the Texas Stars, fall in game 1 to the Abbotsford Canucks. This was a close game. Jacob, you obviously watched all of it, but it certainly seems like, and we'll get a look at it here, that final goal was probably one that the Texas netminder would want back as Christian Wolanin blasts one from the point, pretty unscreened, and beats him 5-hole. Not a great look. He thought he had it. He stopped most of it. Not a good look, but this one ends just under 6 minutes into the first frame of overtime. What did you see from the Abbotsford Canucks in that game, Jacob?
They played really well. And something that was noticeable, and Jeff and Dave pointed it out on Rinkwide, like Abbotsford was rolling 4 lines for most of the game, but like 3 lines were just going all game long. And there was a bit of tweaking and tinkering with the lineup, but like it was pretty clear that Manny was confident that he could throw any group of his forwards out against any group of Texas's forwards. So when you think about what this series is going to do when it goes to Texas, like the Canucks aren't going to be worried about not having last change because they're confident in their depth against Texas's very top heavy lineup. Now, Cole Lind is leading the AHL playoffs in scoring, former Canucks prospect. I would assume friend of the show, Quads. He seems like a guy that would have been on Canucks Combo
like
at one point.
6 times.
Yeah. He was good. He scored the opening goal for Texas, but Texas's top 2 lines really worked hard in some big minutes. And I think if this series goes 6 or 7 games, you have to factor that in when you're looking at Abbotsford's depth and saying, I think you got to look at the team who's willing to run 4 lines and still control the majority of the possession and the shots, which they were able to do last night. Texas's goalie, with that overtime winner aside, was really good. That game shouldn't have gone to overtime.
Yeah. Harm, any notes on that game? I want to talk about Victor Mancini's burst.
It was such a typical Abbey performance where they had a bit of the slow start, and Artur Shilov's was important for them, not only during the first period, but at the start of the second period as well. He made a breakaway stop, hit a full extension Luongo style glove save. But I want to say after the first few minutes of the second period, that's when Abbey really started to kind of take the game over, just rolling the Stars over with their constant pressure on the forecheck, their physicality. Sammy Blade might as well be the Tom Wilson of the AHL with the way that he's just a wrecking ball power forward type. I think Abbey, compared to the start of the Colorado series, has become a lot more dynamic off the rush offensively. That really stands out to me. First 2 games against the Colorado Eagles, they weren't able to create a lot of grade A chances in transition. They had to work really hard to create their offense from cycle and down low play, which is an important facet of manufacturing chances, but their rush game wasn't really going. Whereas I think towards the end of that Colorado series, you look at the series clinching win they had, the 4 goals that they had, the 5th was an empty netter, but the 4 goals they had were all off the rush. And you're seeing that Abbotsford's defensemen have more of a green light to join the rush and activate as trailer. Breeze Bus scored in that fashion in game 1 to open the scoring for Abbey in the most recent contest last night. And then on top of that, when you compare having that rush element of their game with now they're also creating a lot of havoc on the forecheck and just able to pin the Stars in their own end and just wear them down too. Like the combination of that, they generated a lot of looks and I thought were pretty dominant through the second and third period. And I talked about this being a typical sort of Abbey win. You also have to shout out the PK. Lekker-Mackey took a penalty with about 3 minutes left in the third. Tie game. PK comes through clutch with the kill to force it to OT. That's been a massive part of Abbey's playoff success too, as their PK has been virtually unstoppable.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to get this clip And for those in the podcast, you already know because it's all over Canucks Army. It's on Dave Hall's Twitter account. Victor Mancini putting on, looks like it's a 7 at the end of that jersey, not a 0, because, oh my gosh, this guy goes coast to coast, splits in the neutral zone, and then just blows past the defense. Like, man, I was amazed by that rush. And you talked about the defenseman getting involved in the rush. That was one where I was just like, who am I watching here? And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Phil DiGiuseppe earlier this week about how he really does stand out with just his mobility at this level.
Yeah, and the confidence, the boldness, the willingness to take guys on, to beat them one-on-one. That's the type of maneuver you only attempt in a high-stakes playoff game when you're feeling on top of the world, when you feel like you can manufacture and create anything sort of at will. And it's been building. Mancini has been great since the start of these playoffs, but you saw in the Colorado series him producing more points and being even more willing to take some of these calculated chances and risks offensively. And I love that he's able to get these looks without the downside of, when you're taking risks, sometimes defensemen turn pucks over and end up sort of putting themselves in positions where it results in chances against. Mancini is giving you the goods with these rushes and with a lot of these zone exits and high-skilled plays with the puck, without the typical warts and mistakes and turnovers that you might sort of expect from a defenseman that is sometimes attempting riskier plays.
All right. Anything else on Abby from either of you guys? Are you guys ready to go to anyone else?
I'm ready to go to anyone else.
So just one more thing I want to point out. So Shilovs was great again. Something that is kind of worth noting, though, is every game, it seems like he makes 4 or 5 like ridiculous saves, but he also gives up a goal that you're like, he probably should have had that. So I'm curious to see, as Texas, who we mentioned, has a super top heavy lineup with really a lot of talent, guys that have played in the NHL and have scored at the American League level. I'm curious to see what adjustments they make if they can try and figure out a way to solve Shilovs. Because keep in mind, these teams have never played each other, right? So now coaches are going to have film to work off of. What adjustments are the Stars going to make, and how is Manny going to make adjustments for his team to respond? So I think these next couple games are going to be really interesting for that reason. There's going to be a huge chess match going on, because last night's game was just like, at times was just a shootout back and forth. There was like 4-on-2 rushes for about 5 minutes in a row for both teams, and the coaches are going to want to clean that up.
The Abby Center is going to be buzzing on Saturday for game 2, but it is also worth mentioning. We brought this up last week. I think we talked about it. Archer Shilov's record in these playoffs in game 2s has just been abysmal, like awful. Hasn't he gotten pulled in 2 straight series, Jacob? In game 2?
I don't know if he got pulled. He got pulled in one of them, but he's been poor in both of those game 2s.
Yeah, game 2s, and we had the numbers. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like an 860 save percentage. In the rest of the playoffs, he's like 9 something. So yeah, it has not been good for Shilovs in game 2. So hopefully he can kind of curb that a little bit, and the Abbotsford Canucks can get a game 2 win on Saturday. We'll be back on Monday to talk about it. But before we close out the show, let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends at the Vancouver Canadians. Head on down to the Nat this weekend. There's a nooner at the Nat. Actually, today there's a nooner at the Nat. The White Spot Family Fun Sunday is on June 1st. Make sure you bring the kids, because there's a Bob Brown Bear stuffy giveaway, and the kids get to run the bases post-game. It's always a fun day on a Sunday afternoon. And make sure you also check out the Saturday matinee. Trey Savage, number 2 prospect in the Blue Jays organization. He gets the start on Saturday. So if you want to watch a bunch of strikeouts, head on down to the Nat. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or check out CanadiansBaseball.com. All right. Here's something I saw today. I actually wrote this down because I really wanted to talk about it. I saw the price of gas changing in real time. Like, I was waiting at a red light, and instead of scrolling Instagram like I normally do at red lights, I saw the gas thing changing. Like, it was going down 1 digit at a time. I'd never seen it happen. Have you ever seen it happen?
Maybe once, but
I've seen it. Yeah.
It's been kind of crazy. On a related but kind of side note, how much the gas prices have been fluctuating over the last week.
Well, yeah, wasn't there that fire or something?
I swear one day, a few days ago, gas got up to almost 180. And
It
then
was.
the
It
other
was
day
like,
it was
yeah.
back near 150. It's been
Wasn't
volatile
there a
lately.
fire or something? I thought there was something that like made it go up. And then now it's just back to what it was. Because it is cheap right now. It's cheap. I just filled up. I can't find it. Yeah. Also, Ed is missing the joke. I should explain it because a few people actually forgot that or don't get the joke. So I should explain this. Calvin said that's nuts, Quads, and Ed said Quads just admitting to using his phone while driving. This is an inside joke on the show. I don't actually use my phone while driving. The way it started is that I said, oh, I was listening to Rink Wide Vancouver. I said this like a year ago almost. I said I was listening to Rink Wide Vancouver on my way home while I was in the car, and I said I didn't have the screen on. I had it down and away so that I could just hear the audio. But yeah, no, that's the joke. Just so people get it. Just because there might be people on the podcast as well that think I'm just like, oh yeah, my attention span, red lights are so boring. I got a Zoomer attention span, Gen Z, so I gotta scroll my TikTok reels and and watch my. And if Chris were here, if Chris Faber were still the co-host of the show, he'd bring up Addison Rae, who used to make a common occurrence on this show back in the day. But anyways, okay. Karn said we got Unk gas talk over here.
I was gonna say
We got talking about
This is
gas
old man talk.
prices, building planters. Yeah, we
Yeah.
are really a show for 58-year-old Italian men.
Well, you know what? Look at our demographic. We do have a lot of people in their 30s to 50s, right, Jacob?
We've got a very wide range of listeners, like
Well, we
ranging
appreciate
literally
it.
from like 18, 19, 20 all the way up into people in their 80s. It's
Well,
kind of cool.
The 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are listening to this, strive to have a nice garden one day. Start your woodworking, right?
they're probably terrified that once you hit 25, you just become an old man. If you're below the age of like 21 and you're terrified at what we're sort of becoming, or Quad specifically, I can tell you don't suddenly just become. You don't have to be spending your weekends at Home Depot and building planters and woodworking. Nothing against those hobbies, but you can delay that phase of your life a little bit.
Oh man. Big Dog Hockey said his Quad's in the mafia. No. And then yeah, I don't know. This is so funny. Gardening's fun. Jack Maloney said, bro, I'm avoiding gardening at all costs. It's fun, man. I don't know. Like I'm watching Jacob pull up my strawberry. I think I texted it to you, didn't I?
You didn't.
Oh.
That's such a random thing to ask me to pull up.
Well, I got my first strawberry. My first strawberry came in. So, anyways, it's fun. Make your own food. It's fun. All right. Yeah, Ed said Harm's lying. Once you turn 30, those activities are mandatory. The funny thing is,
But we're not 30.
well, yeah. Okay, the funny thing is, and there's no hockey talk in the chat. In case people are wondering why we're not talking about hockey, nobody is giving us anyone else's about hockey. So if you'd like us to talk hockey, be my guest, give us something to talk about. But I got nothing else. The last thing I wanted to say was about a month ago, my fiance's friends were like, hey, let's go to the Blarney Stone, which is a young people's joint. And
young people's joint. There's no way you said that. There's no way you called it a young people's joint.
That's
you know what I'm saying? It's one of these places-
Quads is now past Unk status. Now he's in Gramps status.
Well, you get it. You get what I'm saying. They play loud music and there's no tables at night. They make everybody dance. So I was saying immediately, because they were like, oh yeah, like we'll roll up around 9 o'clock. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, that sounds horrible, but sure, okay, whatever. And I was with you guys when it was there's my strawberry. My strawberry's on screen. But it was being suggested to me that yeah, we go at 9 o'clock, and my fiance is in the same boat as me. The perfect night for us is like we watch a movie that starts at 7, 8 o'clock, movie's done by 10, 10:30, and then we hit the hay. If we're asleep by 11, that's a perfect night. That's a perfect night. So anyways, I had to do a 9 o'clock at the Blarney Stone, and no disrespect to the venue, great spot, but not as good as Greta. But it was fine. It was fine, but it was so loud. Like I don't know, man. It was so loud. It was so loud, dude. It was so loud.
It's the 1 or 2 times a year that you're going out. You can
One or two
enjoy
times
yourself.
a decade. The last time I went out was like, I think I was 21 the last time I went out. And I haven't gone in the past 4 years.
I don't go out very often, but when I do, Blarney's a decent spot. And the bouncer there, the doorman, Nick, is a huge Canucks fan and like watches all our like clips and is like fully
really?
locked in. Yeah. So I that's part of the reason I always love bumping into Nick. So shout out to him.
Well, I don't think I saw Nick. Either that or he didn't recognize me because I was waiting in that stupid lineup and I still had to pay $20 to get in the place.
The first time I showed him my ID, he chirped me about being too negative in my articles. I just loved it.
That's funny. That's funny. All right. Oh, here we go. Okay. This is actually a good question. Okay. Now that Dallas is out, this is from Mike in the Valley. Yeah, no, it is from Mike in the Valley. He just posted it twice. He said, are any Dallas players eligible for the Calder Cup playoffs? Because they could go join the Texas Stars. I'd have to look into this, but I believe
we already know. We know who they are. We talked about it on Rink Wide last night. It's Alex Petrovic and Liam Bichsel. So 2 massive defensemen who are both playing for the Stars in the Dallas Stars, that is. Now, what we expect is they probably won't be flying to Abbotsford for game 2, but they will likely join up with the series when it shifts back to Austin for game 3.
Yeah, like those guys will still have to go do exit interviews and stuff. I don't think they'd. I think you're right. I think you're exactly right. I don't think they'll be in the list tomorrow. Now, here's something I thought of, actually a hockey thing that I wanted to quickly ask you about. And Harm, if you need time to think about it, it's a good topic for a show next week. But I did start thinking about this as I just looked at the Dallas Stars Puckpedia page. Saw $5 million in projected cap space for next season. Are there any casualties? Because I was talking about this with Tyson today. Tyson Cole and I were having just a little chat, and we were thinking about, like, could you get Tyler Seguin out of Dallas and you take on that contract, and then maybe you are able to get something else, maybe a Maverick Bourque? Are you able to take advantage of the fact that the Stars are pretty cap strapped heading into this offseason and scoop up a player where you kind of do them a favor by taking on a contract, but in doing so, you also get a player that you really like?
Yeah, they are going to need to ship some money out. Now, I imagine Dumba is the first candidate, $3.75 million. He had a really, really disappointing season. That's priority number 1 to get off the books. And I look at Dumba as to get off his contract. That's maybe the piece that you give up a Maverick Bourque for, because Sagan's at least still a handy contributor. And I believe he still has a full no movement clause.
Yeah.
So that is going to be tricky to work around. If he doesn't want to move, you're not going to be able to move that contract. Outside of that, Mason Marchment, he's got a year left at $4.5 million. Quality second line winger. Yeah, he'd be, bigger body, skates well. Obviously didn't have the best playoff performance, but has been a productive second liner in the regular season. He'd be perhaps expendable if you want to keep a player like Matt Duchene, who has obviously the value as a centerman. Probably can't afford Granlund unless he wants to take a huge discount to stay with the Finns. But yeah, they're going to have to do some work here to clear contracts.
Yep. Oh yeah, and I mean, there's a couple guys on that team that I didn't even realize needed new contracts. Like obviously Maverick Bourque, we've talked a lot about him, but like he's an RFA, he's going to command a pretty penny. This is going to be a really interesting off season for the Dallas Stars, no doubt. Wow. Okay. So we'll talk about it later. I'm sure we'll dive into it, but kind of the immediate fallout after a team gets eliminated is just like, okay, what's their offseason going to look like? And I think it's going to be a busy one out in Dallas. Okay. Oh, I like this one from Cali Canuck. This is a good summer show idea. He said, do projections on the Canadian Olympic team. I think we could do that in the summer. I think that's a good summer show idea. Good stuff. All right, we got it back on the rails. Chat was enjoying that. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365. And we talked about it. We talked about it. Right now, you can get Connor McDavid to win the Conn Smythe Trophy at -110 odds over at Bet365. That's what we're taking today. That's what we're taking it. And if you want to get on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs, Bet365 has got you covered. From game props, player props, totals, and the money line, you can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'll update everybody on the planter on Monday. We'll see you next week. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Jacob Bizarre, my name is Dave Quadrelli. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.